Facebook famously determined that if a new member invited 10 friends within 14 days, they were hooked for life. So they focused religiously on driving the user experience to this key metric. If you apply this product-based approach to B2B sales, then you can identify those users that are ready to talk. And this method is known as the Product Qualified Lead, or PQL. So if you sell in a freemium, open source, or trial model, then the PQL method is critical to give your sales team visibility into who is ready to talk. So talk to your data team, or better yet, partner with Whaler's team of data scientists to develop a PQL model tailored specifically for your business. You'll be empowered by knowing exactly when a user is ready to convert. To see specific examples, go to getwhaler.com/Andy. That's GETWHALR.com/Andy. And as a bonus, if you sign up to learn more about Whaler and PQLs, then Whaler will send you their optimized 2-page master services contract that you can leverage for your own business free of charge. It's time to accelerate. Hi, this is Andy. Welcome to another edition of Frontline Friday with my regular and very special guest, Bridget Gleason. Now, before we get to the show, Bridget and I have a favor to ask of you. Really appreciate it if you took time right now to leave a review for this show on iTunes. And while you're there, click the button, subscribe to Accelerate. Make sure you get Frontline Friday automatically each week. Also, we need to hear from you. More specifically, we need your sales questions. I mean, what can we answer for you? What challenges do you have that we can help you with? So go to accelerate.fm/frontline and enter your question there. Each month, we're going to select one listener's question to be the question of the month. And the winner will receive a $50 Amazon gift card. So remember, go to accelerate.fm/frontline to give us your question and maybe win $50. So Bridget, how are you today?
Andy Paul.
Yes.
I am great. I'm fantastic.
You are fantastic.
I'm wonderful.
We've established that.
It's end of the quarter. It's end of the quarter, as I mentioned. And I will share with the people what I told Andy just before we started, that we just moved into our own office space. There's still some work that needs to be done. And somebody came by yesterday, was walking around and told me that they were going to start demoing the office.
Demolishing the office, not demonstrating it. Yes. Yes,
demolishing the office the last week of the quarter. And I told them, actually, they weren't going to do that the last week of the quarter. So if you read about me in the paper, that like I'm the one that's barricaded in front and won't let the let the wrecking ball come. But it's not for, like, I'm not trying to preserve a tree. I'm trying to make sure the team can keep selling.
Or a historical landmark. Yes. Well, at least you have your priorities straight.
Absolutely. 100%.
100%. Okay. So we have a guest today joining us on the show. And joining us is Ryan O'Donnell. And Ryan is CEO of SellHack and Replyify, which I always butcher. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm great. And just to let you know where my mind is, when I hear that you're demoing the office, I go right into, who are you demoing it to?
Yes.
Have you qualified them? How did you get them interested? I think we're going to have a fun talk.
I love that. Yes. When I had said something to my team about they were going to demo the office, they were also like, really? Over WebEx? How are they going to demo the office? So, demolish.
Right. So that's really, that could be one of the topics today, is like, hey, people, get a life. It's not all about demonstrations.
I know.
There are other words that we can use. So, Ryan, where are you joining us from today?
Sunny Cleveland, Ohio.
Ohio. So why does your profile say Brooklyn?
I lived there for 10 years before my wife and I got on the baby train, and I'm the proud father of my 3 favorite startups. Jack is 5, Charlie's 3, and Grace is 2 months at this point. So
nice.
I'm busy.
Well, usually people, when they move out of the city, they go to Westchester or Long Island. You chose to go much further afield.
We're Ohio folk. Once we graduate, my wife and I graduated from college and looked around at the market, and unfortunately we left. What are they called? Boomerangs. We left for greener pastures. did our career in New York for, about 10 years and then came back here to raise a family.
Got it. All right.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, it is indeed. So, so tell us just a little bit about SellHack and Replyify.
The why or the what is built on the why, right? So the what is SellHack is a prospect list building tool, verification of email addresses, built for salespeople who don't want to waste time spending their days in, building out Excel files, guessing email addresses, going to 10 different sites to verify them. And Replyify is a cold email automation system. That's the what. The why is I've run various startups with various degrees of success and always struggled with sales and particularly just the amount of time that sales take. And the fact that when you're in sales, I want to spend all of my time, or at least the vast majority of my time, having sales conversations or thinking about sales and not, working on data entry that's going to ultimately kind of feed that pipeline and turn into those sales conversations. So why I'm working on it is there was a problem. I was wasting too much time. So we built the solution, which is SellHack for the list building and email verification, and then Replyify for the cold email and pipeline automation.
So emails sort of one of your things. And one of the things you guys sort of specialize in is, you say, the psychology behind sales email. So what is the psychology behind sales emails? Is there a psychology behind sales emails?
I'm working on a post right now, and I'd like to share this with in the footer notes.
Is this an exclusive like world premiere?
This is an experiment that I'm running. So
okay.
I experiment at night, and like I said, I have 3 kids, so I work in 2 shifts. I work during the day, and then I check out typically between 6 and 9, and then once I get the kiddos to bed, that starts the second shift. Right, and the second shift is when I can do all the things that I couldn't do during the day. Because I was working on more kind of time sensitive things. So what I'm working on right now and what I'm going after is, yes, there is a psychology behind cold emails and email outreach. And I'd be curious to get both of your opinions on this as well, but I'll spend the next 30 seconds on my 2 cents.
Sure.
There are people who talk about cold emailing and the psychology of it. There are people who actually do it. And then if we're looking at a Venn diagram, you can't see me with my hands up in the air right now. There aren't very many folks who do both, right? Who get into the weeds on and get analytical and run experiments and use a scientific method to test out different approaches and actually do go out there and test and are okay with failure. But look for those tests that yield high response rates and high engagement rates. And if you guys press me, I'll go into the experiment that I'm working on right now. I think the psychology behind cold emailing is, right time, right person, right message, right? And it's marketing 101. But when you put it into practice, how many of us are actually doing it? How many of us are writing very, very specific campaigns for very specific segments, right? And most of us will go out and say, hey, I have a product or service that I sell into vice presidents of sales, right? And I go out and I have one email campaign that I send to a bunch of vice presidents of sales and various other sales titles. But you'd be surprised if you actually looked into the data of the people who actually buy your product or service or who are your best customers, that you're going to have CEOs of 10-person startups. You're going to have VPs of sales at 5,000 person organizations. You're going to have, everywhere in between. And the thing that I don't see often enough, and the best thing for me is that I know the difference. And I know that for these different segments, and because I treat them differently, I write my email campaigns very, very differently, because the VP sales at a 5,000 person company cares about different things than a VP of sales or a CEO who's doing the selling at a 5 or 10 person company. And I think that message and that approach is missed by so many people. And I'll shut up now. Chime in.
Well, I mean, to me, that's a little bit of sort of motherhood and apple pie there. I mean, the whole idea about segmenting your markets and creating content and emails for specific personas, certainly the talk is out there. I mean, I guess your point would be is that a lot of talk, but people aren't really doing it in actual implementation. I don't. What do you see, Bridget?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in terms of what you're talking about here also, Ryan, that you see more people talking about it than you find people actually doing it. But I guess it goes back to, like, when you were saying the right person, the right time with the right message. I think when maybe reps are doing more volume, they don't always know if it's the right time. So sometimes it's hard to get the right time. And if you don't know if it's the right time, sometimes it's hard to really know what the right message is. I like what you were talking about before, just at the end there, that what's important to a VP of sales at a 500-person company and what they're thinking about is very different than a VP of sales at a 20-person company. And so I think the messaging there can be different. I think it's hard to do. And I think people do get lazy, but I think it's just as a sales leader and as sales leaders, these are the things that we need our individual sales reps to be thinking about and doing. And actually, this is where the creativity is and fun in sales, that it's not so robotic.
Well, but isn't this one of the real issues that we have with, the technologies we're using in sales these days is that, we have this idea of sort of mass personalization, right? Or personalization at scale, which, to me is sort of oxymoronic, right? I mean, you really can't personalize at scale. So I think one of the, points that Ryan's sort of bringing up is like, how do you do this intelligently in a way that the outreach is much more personalized to the person you're sending it to?
And I have a solution.
All right.
For that.
Sure.
I'm going to jump in. Right. And I'm going to ask the audience and ask both of you, and you could take this as a rhetorical question or just kind of jive off of my comments. How many cold email campaigns do you have right now? How many active or for your sales team, right? If you sat down in your next sales meeting, you said, all right, everyone, I'd like you to do this week in your next sales meeting. I'd like you to ask your sales team, the folks who are out there, the SDRs, the BDRs, the sales development reps, anyone who's sending out cold email campaigns, how many campaigns do they actually have active right now? Okay, and if it's one or two, it's not enough. It's not enough in my opinion, right? So when I talk about right time, right place, right message, I marry that up with having an experimental mindset, right? And applying a scientific method to what you're doing. Right now, I have 8 campaigns running. I have 8 different campaigns running. They all are similar, but they're different. Some are a bit more aggressive and edgy to one audience. Some are toned back a bit. Some are referencing the fact that, for the right time. Some are referencing the fact that we are, in Q4 right now. And that we should be thinking about how to close out the year strong, but also how to plan for a strong Q1, right? So at any given time, I'm running at least 5 different campaigns to 5 different segments, and I'm experimenting across there. And I think, to your point, Andy, when we think about this mass personalization at scale and having it be oxymoronic, I think it is. If your approach is, I have one stock cold email campaign, and I know my target segment, and I'm just going to feed the beast, right? There are 8,000 people who fit my persona or my perceived persona, and I have this campaign that I've run some A/B tests on, done some variants on it, and it's working. And I'm just going to feed that beast with 50 to 250 new prospects per day and start them up in my email sequence. Right. So I'm going to call BS on that approach. And I'm going to say, if you're doing that, you're not segmenting enough. You're not running enough tests. You're not getting edgy enough. You're not pushing the limits. And it's one thing to push the limits and drop in and start a campaign sequence of, 5,000 new contacts that you might burn or put off because you're running an edgier campaign. But it's much different if you start, with a smaller scale and say, hey, look, I'm going to go out and test this hypothesis, and I'm going to see what the response rate is. And based on that, I'm going to decide whether to keep this campaign or kill it, double down on success and feed that more, or I'm going to dial it back and cut my losses and move on to the next one.
So, Bridget, you've got a sales team. Can you answer his question? How
many they have?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, are the campaigns originated by the individuals in your organization, or do you guys coordinate and have,
So we've got one campaign that marketing runs sort of in conjunction with sales that's product related for every new trial. But then the sales reps they've got a variety of different campaigns. Like they don't have one or two. They look at where the lead came from. That's going to have one sort of campaign. They look at the level of the person. That's a different kind of campaign. They look at the size of the company. So they have several different campaigns, but there are within each campaign, there's also personalization, at least the first one within every single one. And maybe we're just not doing the scale that you're talking about. Ryan, maybe we're not doing 5,000, and I would never have a sales team do that many. That's a marketing exercise, but I really want them to be very personalized around where the lead came from, the industry that they're in, the level of the buyer, the size of the company.
And your SDRs are doing that personalization themselves? In terms of saying,
the sales reps are. Sales reps are.
By creating campaign for specific personas.
Yeah, they are.
I agree with that, and having run SellHack, and I cringe whenever I get on a call, and I go through I have a couple qualification questions. So when I send a cold email out, my CTA, my call to action is, let's set up time. How does your calendar look next week for a quick call to see if there's a fit, right? And that's pretty standard. It wasn't so standard 4 years ago, right? It was a lot of, hey, would you like to start a 4-week premium trial, and much higher commitment calls to actions, and that didn't get responses to emails. What I'm conveying is, I don't want to waste your time. I certainly don't want to waste my time, right? With having a half-hour call to do a demo, to demo the office, right?
Yeah.
You look like a good fit. Based on my research, you seem like a good fit because you're similar to other customers that I currently have. And I'd like to see what you're currently doing, and I'd like to see if we have a fit. So that's my call to action. It's a pretty easy, low commitment, response to the person to say, yeah, I'm interested. Let's set up a call, or no, I'm not interested. I have this covered, and we fork off from there. So the cold emailing that I'm doing, it kind of falls into two different categories. One is we have inbound leads, right? And those inbound leads kind of go into a separate sequence or cadence. And then we have folks that are presumptive. They're prospects. They fit a certain persona that we've identified internally, that where they look and feel like our existing clients. So we have a pretty good indication that there might be a good fit. So we do our cold emailing where folks on our team are sending out anywhere from 50 to 150 cold emails per day, or starting up 150 new prospects per day in any one of 5 different sequences, right? And Bridget, to your point, the sequences very much depend on the company size, the person's title, how they fit within the organization, things that they're thinking about. But from an experimental standpoint, we'll have a segment. It might be, CEO in the internet industry located in the US with, less than 10 employees, but greater than 1. We have a very specific campaign, or a very, very specific sequence of emails that we send them to try to get to that first call to see if there's a fit, right? Or get them to reply back. And I guess what I'm encouraging folks who might be listening to this to do is to look at how you're approaching your outbound cold prospecting emails and challenging your assumptions, right? And also running different tests with your campaigns and get a little bit more edgy with content. Like try to talk to them about things that are very assumptive and may or may not resonate with them, and some won't, and you might offend a few people and get some nasty replies back or whatever. But when you find the type of campaign that speaks to your prospect in their language and you build that rapport seamlessly, those are the types of replies to emails and demos and qualified leads and engaged prospects who ultimately end up converting at a much higher rate from what we find.
Yeah, and I would say, Ryan, we definitely have work to do on that front. Like we're not there. We're not where we need to be on that for sure.
Well, do you lead with email or lead with calls, Bridget?
You mean is the first
contact a call or is it an email?
Well, typically it's an email.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
certainly not for all organizations. A lot of companies are purely call first.
Yeah, and part of it is because we haven't had an SDR team, number one, and the company has been, our headquarters are in Tel Aviv, as you know.
I do.
So until we opened up this Boston office, it just wasn't the time difference and follow the sun. We had some issues with that, but we typically do we do email first, but a quick follow up with phone is that's what we're going for.
Okay, so that's your cadence.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to the original question then. Or let's say a branch of the original question. We're talking about psychology behind emails. So why do emails still work? Given how overwhelmed people are by the number of emails they get, why do they still work? Why are we still using them?
Why are we still cold calling? Why do people still make cold calls? Right? I was a stockbroker back when I first moved to New York. First job I ever got. Moved to New York, hit Craigslist, and started applying to jobs. And I was a cold caller. Mm-hmm. And my job was to walk into the office every day wearing a $75 suit because I got 3 for $150, $150, right out of college. Nice. On 34th Street and Fifth Avenue. Yeah, garbage dog, garbage. Just I would I still have one of them and I keep them in my closet.
The seams are glued together, not sewn together.
Just as a memory,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's great.
But I would go in every day, and I would. My goal was 500 phone calls a day, right? And I would speak to every single gatekeeper possible.
500 phone calls per day?
The goal was 500 calls a day. Right?
That's amazing.
We typically get into like three.
You're talking a team. That wasn't you personally.
Me personally, like grinding and making phone calls off of 3x5 inch note. Actually, no, the 5x7 inch note cards that were specifically built over the weekend, going onto the old school site like Hoover's and building out a list of executives and literally just grinding with a headset on. So I've done cold calling. They still do that today. They do the same thing today. They do it. So why email and why not phone call? And I'll challenge anyone here. I'll challenge either of you or anyone listening here. Tell me how many emails you can send within a 5-minute period compared to the number of phone calls you can make within that same 5-minute period, right? And if we want to go even down one level and go back to the 1950s, where you had folks walking around door to door selling vacuum cleaners and blenders and everything else.
It wasn't that long ago. I mean, you're talking about how Bridget got started.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to make Bridget.
I still like selling vacuums.
Yeah, you don't want to make Bridget feel old.
Email is the most efficient method of trying to engage someone that you don't know in a conversation, right? And email is just a different medium compared to a phone or door-to-door or direct mail, right? For B2B, if you don't have, if you don't know someone, you can't do business with them, unless you meet them, right? So if you don't know someone, you can't do business. So the next level is you look for an introduction. If someone cannot introduce you to the person that you want to meet to do business with, you have to introduce yourself. And you have a couple of different options. You can buy ads, right? Which is a separate conversation. You could, show up at their office and try to get a meeting. You can call them and try to cold call them and get a meeting, or you can send an email to them, which is, maybe, likely their preferred method of communication, maybe not for cold emails, but if your message is correct and is easily consumable and your call to action doesn't require them to really think about it very much, I think that I'm going to go out on a limb and say email is the most efficient and effective way to contact someone you've never met. And I think it's done, and the way that, when it's handled correctly, it shows, the utmost respect for their time and for your time, right? And you have to be okay. And I enjoy getting a quick no. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
right?
Oh,
because I have 10,000 other folks that I haven't talked to yet who might be receptive to, what I might have to offer with regards to value. So I'm going to go on a limb and say email is the most effective way of contacting folks, but there's a right and a wrong way, and there's a lot of room in between, which is where the vast majority of folks who are selling via email tend to fall. And I think with the right experimentation and the right mentality to try different things, I think that's where, yes, you can have quicker losses where people are like, what are you talking about? Like, leave me alone, get out of my face. But then you'll try something and, all of a sudden you have a 60% response rate.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where you double down on that type of campaign. So it's this experimentation and having that mindset of trying new things. And I just wrote a blog post on this about writing drunk and editing sober. Right. So on the second shift, once I get those kids to bed, I pour a glass of bourbon. I bust out the pretzels. I call it adult Oreos because I dip these like delicious sourdough pretzels into a glass of bourbon. And that's when I do my creative stuff. Right. I've got Netflix on one screen. Or I'm listening to music and I'm just grinding and I'm thinking and I'm looking at the emails that I'm getting and I'm thinking about, all right, am I really going to send out, am I really going to write a new campaign that basically says the same thing that I've always been saying, or am I going to try something different?
Right.
So can I tell you about that something different quickly?
Sure. No, I was still thinking you've come up with a new definition for Netflix and chill. I mean, it's
yeah, definitely,
and not necessarily a better one either.
I'm weird. I like what I do.
Your wife sounds like she's very patient with you.
She grinds as well.
Okay.
So we're on the same level there. So here's the problem I had last night. Literally last night. Right. I have, I went out and I built a list of folks that, we're in the same group. We're in the same LinkedIn group. Mm-hmm. We'll just call it what it is. We're in the same LinkedIn group. These are people who are similar to me with regards to what they do on a day to day. Okay. So I went in and I went in and I built a list and I, got their email addresses and I'm like, all right, I'm going to email these folks. And the first thing that came to mind was I'm going to email them with like my standard sequence, right? Which is very generic and very vanilla. It's well crafted, but it kind of screams, hey, I went out and searched Google and I found, I looked at the 5 top posts for here are the top 10 email templates you should be sending, and it looks and feels like that, right? So I flipped the script. And I said, look, rather than sending these folks an email that kind of, goes through a sequence of telling them how much value we can add to them and how much we can help them save time in their sales and outbound process. So I said, look, I'm going to create a new campaign. And instead of asking them if they're interested to having a call to see if we're a fit, and this is real. This is no BS. I just said, look, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take the initiative. I want to write a post which is not written by a marketer who's writing, the top 10 cold email campaign templates you should be using, right? Which marketers all over, you can go out and find 50 examples of this. I want to talk to the people who are in the weeds. I want to talk to the folks who are doing this every single day. I want to learn about what are the most aggressive, nasty, mean responses you've ever gotten to a cold email. I want to learn about what are the best responses you've ever gotten. I want to learn about like what are the, what emails or what templates are you using? What are you saying to your prospects that are getting them to react in either a very positive or a very negative way? So my campaign sequence, I flipped the switch. Rather than talking about how we can help them, I said, look, I need some help, right? We're in the same group. We do similar things. You do this every day. You probably have the same pent up anger and the same, the same high highs and the same low lows as I do, right? When you get a great response because you hit someone at the right time with the right message, and the same low lows when you get that nasty response in all caps that says, if you email me one more time, I'm, having my general counsel, contact you, right? Or I'm calling the cops. And I've gotten that one before. So my campaign completely flipped, right? And I haven't started it yet. I've not set it live yet. I came up with the idea last night. I wrote the first draft of my campaign sequence, and what I message to these folks, or what I'm planning to send them, is, look, help me create something that folks who just don't know where to start can actually derive some value from, and let's help give them some guidance with regards to what they should expect and potentially how to respond to that. And my goal is that, it's authentic. I want to create an authentic piece of content that was, contributed by the community of people who do this every single day. And in the process, if some of these folks say, oh, I might be interested in using Replyify to send out my cold email sequence, or, I've been struggling getting leads, and SellHack might be interesting to help me get, valid email addresses. That's a benefit. This is a test that I'm running, and I'll report back, to both of you, and I'll share with, whoever is listening now. We'll update the comments on this, and I will share the output of this. But this is in play, and this is a new kind of approach for flipping the script. Okay.
Well, we'll have you back on to talk about that at this point in the future. In the meantime,
great.
If people want to share with us their top email templates, and they want to share with us the best and worst replies they've received from potential prospects to the emails they sent, then share them with us. You can do one of two things. You can email those to me at andy@andypaul.com. And also you can go to andypaul.com, and on the homepage there's a button. You can press a little red button that says ask a question or talk to me, and you can leave us an audio message about your experiences, and we'll play those on the air and answer any questions and comment on it appropriately. So, Ryan, unfortunately, we're out of time, but appreciate you joining us today.
My pleasure. This is fun. Let's do it again.
Great to have you, Ryan.
Yeah, we'll do it again, definitely. And Bridget, as always, it's been fantastic talking with you.
As always, Andy Paul.
I used your word. Fantastic.
Fantastic.
And everybody that spent the time with us today, I really appreciate you spending your time with us. Hopefully, we've been able to pass along something interesting. So make sure to come back and join us again next week. Bridget, until then.
Until then, we'll talk to you next week.